Good morning and welcome. A couple of announcements. First of all, I'd like to share a screen or actually ask a question. How many of you got the announcement regarding the IMA and regarding the scholarships and regarding the other opportunities? How many saw that? Came out yesterday. Okay. I'd say watch for it, take a look at it. Looks like about half of you responded yes. It went out to anybody registered in the business school. I have a business school listing. I was about a week and a half ago. So if you're not on that list for some reason, you would not have gotten it. But it was, you got it. How many might intend to participate in some of the activities that are listed there? Some of what's going on. All right. One of the things I want to share with you is announcements for things coming up. This week, virtual career fair. And you've heard me say it before, but the best time to go to a career fair is when you're not looking for a job or an internship. The second best time is when you are. So what do I mean by that? Why would you go if you're not looking for something? Well, some of these things can be pretty overwhelming. They can be pretty overbearing in terms of what you will experience. And if you're not used to it or not comfortable with it, you've got two strikes against you to start. So the idea of going to one of these things just to get comfortable, talking to people, networking with people, it's very powerful to allay some of those fears and get you more comfortable. So the next time that you do go and you are looking for a position, you're going to feel better. It'll be easier for you. It'll be more on track. So let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and put in the chat the virtual career fair link. It's good for professional activity credit. It's good for extra credit in this class. It's a 3-hour event, but you don't have to be there for 3 hours. If you're there for a half hour, an hour, you probably got it covered. You get to see the people you want. I'd encourage you to do some research on some of the companies if you're curious. And I'll tell you, it's going to be real powerful if you go to a job fair this year. I know Enterprise is going to be there. Okay. I know that if you go in and you come back to them next year, say, well, I met you guys last year at the job fair. I wasn't really looking, but I heard good things. I enjoyed the conversation and you got me back this year. And they're going to look at you and say, wait a minute, you came to a job fair and you weren't looking for a job? Boy, you're planning things out. You're thinking ahead. And you actually met us last year and you remember? Outstanding. Glad to have you. Let's talk some more. So those are the kind of impressions you want to leave and you want to have. I also want to share the next happy hour is a career and alumni night. At our last event last week, we did have some alumni and lots of students about networking. Here we're going to have a panel of alums talking about their careers, mostly business, and the tracks they took and how they got there, and they'll be open for questions and answers as well. So please put that on your calendar for April 15th, Thursday at 6 p.m. Additionally, the announcement went out for the IMA conference. It's a 3-day conference, which will be held virtually. There's also a conference coming up in Anaheim in the fall that we're looking to get some funding for, so you don't have to pay for the trip. The virtual conference that's coming up in June is normally $200, $195. The School of Business has gracefully, and I will say we're grateful that they've offered to pick up the tab for a number of students. It's not a bottomless pit. It's about 3 or 4 students that they will sponsor to go to this $200 conference. And your participation, when you put it on a resume, even if you're not an accounting or finance major, I had an economics major sign up for the conference in June. But I'll tell you, if you're a marketer, yeah, accounting is kind of important. If you're a manager, yeah, accounting is kind of important. But the same way to an accountant, yeah, marketing is kind of important, and so is management. As a matter of fact, I encourage you not only get involved with the AFC, Accounting and Finance Club, which is general business, not just for accounting and finance folks, but the SHRM chapter. You say, wait a minute, I'm not a human resource major. Why would I want to join SHRM? What's in it for me? Well, think about who is a member of SHRM, the Society of Human Resource Managers. You think these are human resource managers that just hire for people in HR? They actually happen to hire for the whole company. So if you get to meet somebody in SHRM and they say, oh, by the way, you're a management major or you're an accounting major. Wow, we've got some internships coming up. and you've taken the initiative to be here to invest your time and effort and to give back and help your fellow students, well, that's the kind of person we want to hire. So when you look at that and say, why should I be in Accounting and Finance Club or SHRM or Economics Club or any other organization? Why should I go to Model UN? Because you get talking points and you get to meet people. If you come at 6 o'clock on our Wednesday meetings for the AFC at this same, actually on the same Zoom channel, you can help. And what we have our students reaching out. Last month when we had alumni come, our alumni speaker on data analytics was recruited by a student. Do you think they have a rapport now? How about the folks that came? We have alums coming. We had alums last week and we have alums coming next week, next month at April 15th. Do you think if you bump into them and down the road, you can do something called an informational interview and have a chat with them? You think you'll be first in line? Or you talk at a SHRM member and say, by the way, we're looking to have some people come back and talk to this other organization about hiring and careers and about resumes and LinkedIn profiles. Do you think they're going to remember you? It's not bad being on a first name basis with an HR manager. So take advantage of these opportunities. Take advantage of the conferences. Take advantage of any virtual events or in-person events you can. So the key is get involved. So I'm going to leave that with you. I put the chat. I have the link to Wednesday's career fair, and by all means, take full advantage of it. Any questions on that stuff that we're talking about? Are we making sense? Okay. In the chat, please go ahead and let me know. This is our attendance question. Are you going to be able to make it to one of those events? And if so, is it the virtual career fair? Is it the happy hour, HH, VC for virtual career? Or is it the ACE, the accounting, the ACE is a conference and expo, annual conference and expo. So put ACE, HH, or JF in the chat, or all three if you think you might be going. Again, AF, the HH for the happy hour, April 15th. The career fair, CF, and then for ACE, the annual conference and expo, which has employers coming to it, by the way. So those are the kind of things you want to meet. Those are opportunities that you can participate in and take full advantage of. All right. And as I say, the invite still goes. Anybody that wants to come in, we have 2 officer positions open in the AFC. And again, that's pretty powerful. Even if you're not an accounting and finance major and a marketing application or management application goes in and you say, I was an officer in the club, I was membership chair, that's great for marketing. I was a chief legal officer. I'm pre-law. It's a chief legal officer role. If I'm coming in and I'm talking to alums, again, you get to choose the alums you want to talk to. So thank you for the response. Thank you for your attendance question, and I appreciate you sharing. All right, so let's go take a look. We started our video last week, and we went ahead and talked about having ratio analysis. So let's talk about analysis. When we talk about analysis, we have 3 categories we worry about or we discuss. Okay, we have what's called our trend analysis, okay, which is also known as horizontal. This is based on time. Prior year or prior years to current. We also have an analysis called common size. Also known as vertical analysis. And we use a 100% number comparison to net sales. I'll put net capitals. Or we have a 100% comparison I can spell to total assets, which, as you recall, also equals total liabilities plus equity. Okay. So on our income statement, our 100% numbers, net sales, and our other percentages are SG&A, selling general administrative. It might be net income, it might be gross profit, or it could be any combination of factors. And finally, we have our ratio analysis. And we'll be dividing that into 3 categories. We're going to have liquidity, how fast we turn stuff into cash. We have our profitability next. And that's anything with a net income, return, or earnings. So you might have earnings per share, return on assets, or just a state net income percentage. And with that, those are all the same number. So any of those numbers are identical. Finally, we'll have solvency. And this is the long-term stuff. And by the way, liquidity, I'll put a note here. Liquidity is anything that relates to current assets or current liabilities. So our inventory turnover ratio, our receivables turnover ratio, our current asset or current ratio, our quick ratio or asset test ratio, those are all considered liquidity. Okay. All right. Now, there are some other types. As a matter of fact, on Friday, you saw 2 other categories. I'm not going to really emphasize those a lot. One is related to the investments and earnings per share and dividend payout ratio and some other things like that. I'm going to let you know by the end of class today the ratios I expect you to be able to memorize. Most of them are pretty obvious. Return on assets, return over average assets. Return on equity, again, net income over average equity. Receivable turnover, inventory turnover, you work with, receivables is sales and receivables. And inventory is cost of goods sold and inventory. And then we have something called asset turnover. How many times do we sell our assets? Let's see, we'll put total assets in the denominator, total sales in the numerator. If we had 100 million in sales and we had 20 million assets, 100 over 20 means we sold our assets 5 times. So these are just some common measures. I'm going to ask you to take out your annual report. You can go on Edgar if you don't have one handy, or take out your annual report. And please go ahead and let's see if I can get the, let's see. Yep, that's what happens when I use the virtual backgrounds. Take out your annual report and calculate the net income percentage for me of your company. Net income percentage. Take out an annual report or go into Edgar and go into chat. We're still on attendance mode. Go ahead and put in your net income percentage. And a good manager doesn't ask any of their folks to do what they wouldn't be willing to do. So I'm going to go ahead and take my income statement from I have Snap-on tools. So I'm going to go to the Snap-on income statement. On the income statement or the statement of operations, it has revenues and expenses, or sales and expenses and net income. So if I go bottom line, I'm going to take my calculator and I'm going to go in and take my net income as my numerator, 693.5. And divided by my net sales of 3730.0. And I get 18.6%. Don't forget to multiply by 100. So I got Snap-on, 18.6%. Now that number is meaningless. You're saying, Scott, why'd you ask me to calculate if it's meaningless? Well, it's meaningless standing alone. We've done Walmart before, and Walmart comes out to maybe 3.5%, 3%, depending on the year. Amazon 1.7%. Fair enough. Actually, put the year also, and I made the mistake of not putting the year. Please put the year of the net income that you're calculating. It should be at the top of the column. So this was 2019. I'm going to do that again, just for emphasis. 2019, Snap-on, 18.6%. Okay. Now go ahead and calculate for another year. I'm going to actually ultimately going to do 2 years, because it starts getting important when you can compare a number. So I'm going to go to Snap-on, let's say 2 years ago. Income statements for 3 years, balance sheets for 2. I can go 2 years ago. So if I'm calculating Snap-on and I'm going back to 2017, I can go ahead and take my net income, 58.6, and divide that by 3616, up to 3686.9. And I'm going to get 15.9%. So Snap-on, 15.9%. So now I've got something to compare it to. Now the meaning is going to be more. Okay, so I went back 2 years. Normally, I'd go back year to year, but 18.6%. So in the case of Snap-on, they went up from 15.9 up to 18.6%. And actually in between, they were actually higher, over 16% last year. I did the numbers. So now we're looking and saying, okay, Kellogg's. Is Amazon the worst company on the list because their lowest income percentage? They had 1.7, 4.1, and then they had 5.5. Is Kellogg better? Is Snap-on even better yet? Okay, I'm missing a few. We got to get some more on here, please. Thank you. Again, this is part of attendance and participation. You should be able to calculate a net income percentage. And frankly, in the last class, I had someone take a gross profit, not a net profit, and calculate. They told me 70% net income profit. I said, that's a little bit high. Actually, it's a lot high. And they recalculated and really came down to something more reasonable. So just because Amazon is 4% and lower doesn't mean they're the worst. It just means that's what it is. And compared to last year, they're better. Compared to the previous years, they went for 9 years without a profit. Would you be tempted to close your doors if you went for 9 years without a profit? Well, it depends how many backers you had and other people cheering you on and funding you and giving you money. Tesla went for 17 years without a profit. They just had their first profitable year this past year, announced probably about a month ago. So again, this number alone doesn't mean much as a standalone, but in conjunction with other numbers, has a lot of meaning. Okay. I'll review those later, make sure everybody participated. We're all together. We're all in this together. Okay. So let's, by the way, your assignment for discussion this coming weekend is to take an annual report. Probably not one of the ones in your hand, but go to Edgar for a company you're curious about and do the financial analysis and calculate a bunch of ratios. We're going to review this on next class as well, but I want you to be able to comfortable looking at these statements and extracting numbers to calculate ratios, trends, and do some analysis. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at our chapter and what we're talking about. I'm going to use my crutch of a PowerPoint, and just to make sure we're getting everything covered. Okay, so why are we analyzing these things? Well, we've got internal and external users. We've got the employees, the managers, the officers. They want to know what's going on. They want to be understanding of their operations and compare how they did the previous year. How are they doing as managers? External users like shareholders and investors have the same question. So how are they doing as managers? Our executive board on the board of directors, do we vote them out and get some new ones in? Do we shake things up? Or are we on track? Are we meeting our needs, desires, and profitability goals? How about lenders and suppliers? You think they want to take a look at our financials? Most definitely. Well, why would a lender who's giving us money want to know how we're doing? Oh, they want to know if they get paid back. That kind of makes a lot of sense. If you had bought a house for $150,000, you took a $120,000 mortgage, and you went to the bank and said, I need another $100,000 loan to fix up my house, they're going to say, really? Can you, what do you got else for collateral? You got some nice cars? You got some more property? We're not going to give you another $100,000 loan on your good looks. So that's how much more debt capacity do you have? If you're at 80% debt and 20% equity, you try to go over that 20%, 30%, that's going to be pretty high interest rates probably if you had to borrow some more money on that. You only have a limited amount of debt capacity to play with. How about our customers? Do they want to know if we're going to be in business? Of course they do. They want to know that the car in the driveway or the motorcycle in the driveway is going to have parts 2 years from now or 5 years from now. Because if it doesn't, it's going to be sitting in the driveway when it breaks down and not going anywhere. It'll be scrap metal. So that's part of the process. So past and current performance is looked at. Take a look at the current position, financial position, and assess future risk. All right, building blocks, liquidity and efficiency, solvency, profitability, and market prospects. So those are kind of what we're analyzing and the areas we're examining. So what kind of information? I emphasize 1 and 2, taking information from the income statement and the balance sheet. Yes, cash flow is king and queen and important. Statement of stockholders' equity, you've got enough equity information on your balance sheet. And then the notes to financial statements reinforces things, helps talk about things, helps you understand where the numbers come from and what they are doing. So what are we doing for standards of comparison? Well, we have intra-company within our company. How did we do this year compared to last year? How did one retail store, maybe in Florence, do against another retail store, maybe in Charlotte? There's a measure that retailers often use called same store sales. Okay, so not the total sales increase for all $100 stores, but how about Florence? They increased by 8%. That's cool. Charlotte only increased by 4%. Why is that? We're also looking at competitors. There's so much information on those annual reports that competitors can glean out. So when you look at that and you say, oh, I've got my competitors, I'm taking a look at their numbers and I'm comparing their inventory turnover to mine. I'm comparing their net income percentage, profitability to me. I'm comparing apples and apples, hopefully, because they're similar industries. How about industry averages? Larger scale, not just your immediate competitors, but the broader industry as a whole. And there are various guidelines that you extract. So what are our analysis? We talked about horizontal analysis, also called trend analysis, performance over time. We talked about vertical analysis. And with vertical analysis, that common size statement tells us a lot of stuff. So this is across time, and there's a base amount, which is the previous year, the earlier years. And then ratios, basically are relationships between numbers on your balance sheet income statement, which is what we'll be doing and using. So let's look at horizontal analysis. Take a turn. Review of financial statement data across time. So let's go ahead and take a look at some horizontal analysis, some horizontal or trend analysis. So if we're going to be looking at our, let's go over here, we'll put this in red instead. So if I told you I had current year sales of 120 million, I had prior year sales of 100 million. So what's my trend? Well, I can either take current year minus prior year, divide that by prior year, or I could take current year minus prior year and divide by current year. In the chat, please put the number 1 or number 2 for what you think is the right way to go. Please put a number 1 or a number 2 in the chat. Everybody gets to vote. And don't say it depends. This is one of the few times, one of the 5% of the times that it depends is not going to be the right answer here. Cool. You're all saying 1. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Because if I take, so let's figure that out. What's 120 minus 100? That's 20 over 100 equals 20%. Now, frankly, if I do the same thing here, I go 20 over 120 equals a 6, which equals 16.7%. That's because I'm an accountant. I get to do that quicker than many. All right, so you look at that and say, did my sales increase by 20% or by 17%? And yes, the correct answer is 20%. Ding, 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 we got a winner. So that's current year to prior year. By the way, you could use 5 years ago to current. Maybe I said 5 years ago my sales were 100 and this year were 120 and I'd still the same comparison. I'd have 20% over 5 years as an increase, which yields for an average, let's say 20 divided by 5 is 4. So that'd be 4% a year every year for the past 5 years on average. Now, I'm sure the years would fluctuate, but on average, we had a 4% increase each year. Making sense so far? Okay, so let's do common size. You've already done this. You took inventory as a percentage of assets, which also is equal to liabilities plus equity. Okay. You did receivables as a percentage of total assets. And just a few moments ago, you took net income as a percentage of net sales after returns and allowances, after sales discounts, after adjustments, we have net sales. But you could do SG&A as a percent of net sales, anything on the income statement. You can do R&D as a percent of net sales. So again, anything on the balance sheet will be based on total assets. Anything on the income statement will be based on net sales. Are we on the same page? I hope so. All right, let's go ahead and do a new share and take our portion of screen and keep it on. Okay, so comparative statement dollar change. Well, the dollar change is the 120 minus the 100 for a change of 20. It could be 20 million, it could be 20 billion, it could be 20 bucks. And now we're taking the amount, the percentage change, taking that 20, the analysis period amount, minus the base period amount, dividing by the base period. I can't emphasize that enough, that we're dividing by the base period and coming up with our percentage. So 120 minus 100 is 20, divided by 100 was our 20%. Okay. So here's some comparative balance sheets and change. Now this is a horizontal change, year-to-year change, trend change. And we're looking at Apple. And what happened at Apple? Well, Apple's a pretty decent company. They had sales growth from 20.5 to 20, I'm sorry, that sales decline. That's not good. 20.48 billion to 20.29 billion. So that's a decline of 1%. And you have negatives or positives. And the short-term market securities are up 15%. Inventories are up 127%. Wow, they over doubled from 2.1 billion to 4.8. What's going on there? Now you could probably justify coming back to me saying, Scott, that 4.8 out of 128 is not as significant as the 20, the 53, the 17. That 4 out of 128, maybe 3%, is a drop in the bucket. Or 5 out of 120, 4.9. And you'd be right. But you might want an explanation of why did it more than double? Maybe there's new stores opening up, more inventory. Maybe we didn't sell some of our old inventory. We're stuck with stuff. So these tell a story. The financial statements paint a picture and tell a story about your company. It's almost like paint by numbers. Let's take a look at our company, and the numbers tell you what's going on. Just like a journal entry tells you, here's a transaction, here's the nature of it. Our financials and our analysis tell us, here's a company, here's the nature of that company. So we're looking down here, we say accounts payable, up 31%. So sales went down, but our payables are up. Our accrued expenses are up. And long-term debt is way up. This is the biggest ticket number on here. It was $75 billion up to $97 billion, more than payables, more than accrued expenses. Almost a match to our current liabilities or total current liabilities. Our common stock is up 14.8%, not the stock price. This is our equity section. This is the stock that we issue and get money for. Because once we issue it and it's in the market makes money and loses money. We're just there so we can sell some more if we need to, or buy some back and provide the return to our stockholders. All right. How about the income statement? So sales are up. Okay. So sales are up 6.3%. Did I say sale? I misspoke here. Yeah, cash was down, but sales are up. I misspoke. My mistake. I was looking at the balance sheet, and there were no sales on there. So, and nobody caught me. Hope you're listening. All right. Comparative income statements. We're taking a look. Net sales up 6%, but cost of sales is up higher. So gross profits didn't keep up with sales. Net income didn't keep up with sales. Our other income doubled. Again, small number, but still doubled. Our total operating expenses up 10%. Again, didn't keep up with sales. SG&A is up 7.5%. Didn't keep up with sales. So there's something going on here. A lot happening. So a trend analysis, package of data. And this is just the base period amount in the denominator, the change in the numerator, and multiplied by 100. Okay. Line graph can show and demonstrate, oh, what's going on here? Well, we got operating expenses going up faster than sales going up. We just realized that. Okay. And cost of sales, a little bit more. I'm going to take a quick break here because we have a presentation from one of your classmates who attended last week's session. So I'm going to have you go ahead and take control. Are you still presenting today, David?
Sure. Can you hear me now?
I hear you. I'm sorry.
Can you hear me or no?
Not today.
It depends on if my mic is working.
Oh, I'm actually, my sound's turned off. That's my fault. Let's try that again.
Okay. Because I was trying to ask you a question earlier and you never responded. So
I sent you 2 emails this morning.
No, sorry. Like in chat at the very beginning of class.
Okay.
So I thought my mic was broken. So I guess you want like just a couple of minutes?
Couple of minutes. Share what you learned, because not everybody went. Share the experience and go ahead. Okay. Let people know that you had a terrible time or a good time.
Okay. Yeah. So I attended the networking event for the AFC on Thursday, and it was really beneficial, I think, because I mean, I was a previous pipe welder, so like I know that a lot of jobs are spent, well, not spent, but like they're spread word of mouth. So most of them you're not going to find on Indeed or whatever. And I mean, now I didn't realize how much that um, translated to the business, I guess, field. But I mean, it's still 80% of jobs are word of mouth in the business field, which is a very staggering number. Um, so we at first we kind of listened to the opening I guess points of business that the AFC normally goes through, of like announcements of further events and welcoming everybody and the alumni and everything. And so we were listening to the presenter, whose name was, I need to go to LinkedIn really quick. Her name was Valerie Wint, and she works for
Glime.
oh, hang on. Huh?
Glime.
Glime, yeah, that's it. She works for Glime, and they do a lot of like they have material that helps you get ready for your CPA exam and a lot of other certifying exams. And so she was speaking about networking, and I think it was her that she mentioned that she wished that she had started networking earlier. Like, it doesn't matter if you're a professional yet in order to grow your professional network, because the thing is, it can help you get your it can help you get an internship that you're trying to get, or an interview, or I mean something. So basically, if you have a professional network before you're even trying to find a job, you've got your foot in the door before you're even in the building. So it's a very big it's a huge advantage. And so then we split up into breakout sessions twice, each of which were 5 minutes. The first one, it was pretty awkward, because at least to me, I felt like the question didn't really I guess the best way to put it is just spur on like future conversation. So the question was, what's your, like, what superpower do you wish you had and why? And so, I mean, I guess the why could potentially spur on more conversation, but it's not. It feels kind of like okay, this is it, almost like a close-ended question, even though it's still an open-ended question.
And by the way, I've heard that question asked in interviews for a job. So be ready for the curveballs.
Okay, good to know. And so then a lot of people actually kind of were like, that was a little awkward almost. And so then we broke out into another session, and it was just name or say two things that most people don't know about you. And so at least in my group, that kind of helped spur on a connection, because when one of our group members, who was an alumni, he mentioned something about his grandchildren in Western North Carolina. And so then the presenter, Miss Valerie, she said, "Oh, well, me and I think her husband or family somehow they have a home in the mountains in Western North Carolina." And I chimed in with, "Oh, well, that's really interesting, because I have a sister that lives in Western North Carolina." So a small connection like that can really help you to grow your personal network, because then you have a personal connection and something that you can I guess use to foster that relationship. So, I mean, if somebody mentions something about a TV show that you enjoy, or anything that you kind of connect with them about, whether it's a hobby, TV show, movie, some type of geographical connection, any type of interest, like, seize that opportunity and make it work for you, but also help make it work for them. Like, don't just waste the other person's time, because nobody likes that, and then they're not even going to be inclined to, I mean, to give you a heads up about a future internship or job opportunity or anything really, because nobody likes their time wasted.
Okay.
And overall, it was a really good experience. It ended at like 7:30, but several of us stayed until 8:15 talking.
Yeah.
So it was very interesting, and it was really good to be able to get to know some people. And actually, Dr. Scott was talking about an informational interview earlier. He mentioned that I'm meeting with somebody in, I don't know, sometime in an hour from now. Plus, I'm meeting with them for an informational interview to kind of talk about my future career and stuff. So, I mean, I don't really think anything's going to come of it, like job wise, but I mean, it's helping me get my foot in the door. So it's very important that you attend these events because it can really get you ahead. So
Excellent. So now, is the person you're talking to, were they at the event, or is someone else you connected outside?
yeah, it's actually Mr. Marvin.
Excellent. Cool.
So
All right.
yeah,
Some of the things you said, like over 80% of jobs are found through networking. When I first heard that, it was startling. And I'm saying,
oh, it's insane.
can I find it on? I'll apply. I'll send out 200 applications. But the reality is,
If you do that, you might get 40 calls.
you might, or you might get 4.
Yeah.
And
well, I guess I was just going off of the percentage.
Right. But and the key is, well, look at the odds: 200 applications, and the average is over 200, like 250 for a job posting. 200 jobs, 4 people will get a call back. That's 2% in an interview. Okay, 1 will get hired, maybe. That's a 0.5%. Your odds. Now, how do you stack your odds? Well, as soon as you apply to a company, you start going after these informational interviews with people at the company. What's an informational interview? We talked about that. I won't go into the details. Other than it's a 15-minute conversation, not looking for a job, not talking about yourself, but asking them, other people, about their career, their track. If they happen to say, oh yeah, by the way, I know somebody who's hiring. When I talked about SHRM earlier, don't you think the HR managers themselves talk to each other? And don't you say, hey, I'm looking for somebody in accounting or admin, and I'm looking for somebody in programming or in supply chain, or I'm looking for somebody in whatever other arena, marketing or PR or whatever arena. And they may say, I'm not looking for your accounting folks right now, but so-and-so is. Let me give them a call for you if you have that much of a rapport. Otherwise, I'll provide the introduction on LinkedIn. But you want to be in that position of being referred to other people. You're not calling an informational interview saying, are you hiring? You're on an informational interview to find out about their career, their track, and get some insights and ideas for yourself on how you can grow. And then you want to keep that relationship. That's what networking is about, is relationship building. I just sent out a copy of my book on LinkedIn to my nephew with a check, by the way. It was his bar mitzvah 2 weeks ago. So I sent out a check and a note on the cover of the book. Congrats, Mazel Tov, on your bar mitzvah. But I also said, there's an old Chinese proverb about planting a tree, but I converted it to networking. And they said the best time to network was 5 years ago. The second best time is now. And you say, wait, this kid's 13, just had a bar mitzvah. Well, he's got his own business. He's doing landscaping. He's out there pounding the pavement, doing work for folks. Don't you think it would be to his advantage to start networking with the people he's working for and maybe have some references from those people on his LinkedIn profile? And all of a sudden, he's going to have some exposure that someone says, wait a minute, how old are you? You're 18 now. And 3 years ago, someone wrote you a reference about how hard a worker you were when you were 15. Cool. Come on down. Let's talk some more. So by all means, networking, never too early, never too late.
I do have one more comment, actually. So I kind of, after the presentation, I added pretty much every single like alumni that was there on LinkedIn, and I've spoken with quite a few of them. And I may not be, actively communicating with a lot of them right now, but they now know that I was interested. I took the time to write a personal note when I reached out to them. So
the invitation, good.
It kind of helps to reinforce that that connection that we like began in the breakout rooms. And then also one last thing about the informational interviews is people really like talking about themselves. So ask them questions and sit there and listen and be very attentive, because that can get you places too.
And that works in a job interview. People
Oh, yeah.
always like talking about themselves. They want to find about you, but you also want to find about them. And they're selling you the same way you're selling yourself. They're selling you on their company. So if we offer you a job, we want you to take it. And they're going to put their best foot forward as well. And I was going to ask you the question. So how many of the folks at the meeting did you connect to? And you just answered
several. I mean,
yep.
I don't know the exact number, but I think it was at least 5.
I'll give you another example this weekend. How do I connect with people? By the way, you remember you get 100 connections, you'll have a 1-point bonus. Yeah, you get to present and talk about it. You get 500 connections, you get a 5-point bonus added to your final grade. I think it's that valuable. So, and I'll tell you what I did this weekend. I attend virtual conferences on a variety of subjects, like the one I announced for June. I go to the speaker list and I go down the list, and Sunday morning, about 60, 70 people, I sent LinkedIn invites. Looking forward to your participation in the XYZ conference. As a fellow professional, I'd be honored to be added to your LinkedIn professional network. In appreciation of your consideration, Dr. Scott. By name, invite. And as a matter of fact, last night I got a response from Australia. There's a woman who's doing a keynote presentation to CPAs in Australia. She said, Dr. Scott, would you mind if we had a chat? I'm doing a keynote presentation to accountants, and I'd like to talk to one and get some more insights. So we now have a Zoom time scheduled, and we're going to be talking about her keynote. And do you think that's going to build a rapport and relationship that if someday I'm doing a keynote and she knows things about speaking and public speaking, she's a very good public speaker. She's a top keynoter. That's why she's speaking at this other conference. And now you think I have someone I can reach out to and ask a question, or my Vexter business, I can go in and say, by the way, do you know some folks that could take advantage of this? That's going to be a positive rapport and a positive relationship. So I urge you and encourage you to reach out. And even if you don't know them, and the same thing happens, you may not know people that invite you to connect. I encourage you to check out their profile first. And then if they look like they're not scamming you or something of interest, go ahead and connect. But I always get that question. Should I connect to someone I don't know? Well, I'm reaching out to people I don't know. But frankly, they probably say I'm a doctor, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a faculty professor, and I've got a lot of business experience and a CPA. So I've got some credibility, but you do too. You're a student, you're ambitious, reaching out. You're saying, I want to connect with you because you've got experience and insight, and maybe I can help you someday. And if I may have some questions down the road, just like Dave is reaching out. So take advantage of those opportunities. I was going to say you're only a student once, but I remember being a student multiple times, and you will be too. It's lifelong learning. But you'll be at a bachelor's student probably only once, and investigating your career at this time. You want to take advantage. You're in a golden position to call up somebody, and they know you. Maybe you're looking for a job, maybe you're not, but they'll talk to you. I took a survey at the meeting. I said, alums here, I'm going to put you on the spot. If a student contacted you and said, I'd like to have a 15-minute conversation to talk about careers in the field. You're an alumni of my institution, and I congratulate you on your success. Do you have some time to chat? Every one of them said they'd take that call. They would talk to a student without hesitation or reservation. Now, what happens a year from now, 2 years from now, when you are looking for a job? And in the meantime, you may have contacted them 2 or 3 times, sent some articles. You networked. That's what networking is, giving before getting. And if you were able to do that, if you're able to connect, and they hear of something, because after that meeting at night, one of the people told me, I've got 2 internship opportunities coming up this summer. We haven't posted them yet, but I want to make sure you're aware of them. And we're talking. That was one of the alums at the meeting on Thursday rather, at the happy hour. That's powerful. Had you been the student that reached out to that person to invite them to this meeting, guess who'd be first in line for the job? So those are opportunities you want to take advantage of. You don't want to pass up. Any comments or questions? How many are going to be able to make it to the 15th? It's a career night for alumni. Just throw that in the chat before you go. Yes, no, or maybe. Maybe's okay. Yes is okay. No is okay. And once you're done, we're done. I wish you a good week. I look forward to seeing you on Wednesday, if not sooner.
Have a good day.
You too. Thank you so much, Alexis.
You too. Thanks.
Appreciate it. Have a good one, Antonio.
Sorry.
I was typing out a message and everybody left.